When cutting a trailer for your show, the idea is to intrigue an audience and invite them into enough of your world that they want to engage with all of it. You can do this in a variety of different ways, but the main point is to convey your story. So do you hype it up? Do you keep it understated? Or do you spend a minute isolating every single shot of your cast drinking whatever they can get their hands on? If you're Netflix's new original anime, you do just that, leaving everyone potentially interested in what you have to offer, scratching their heads in confusion and running downstairs to put the kettle on. So, with a cuppa in hand, I sat down to watch a 15-episode original that had me far more fascinated with what was in my cup than the anime itself. My name is Isla, and this is my review of Studio Pierrot's Hero Mask. With a trailer like that and a 3-sentence description, I had no idea what I was letting myself in for, but it turns out it's a murder mystery centred around a high-task police force called the SSC, who find themselves investigating the murder of Monica Campbell, a prosecutor who was embroiled in the dark underbelly of a seedy corporation. Sounds like your standard crime show, and it largely is, but the golden bullet in this anime's arsenal is the mask. A paper-like film that when placed over the user's face can give them a myriad of different powers, such as slowing down time or changing appearances altogether. The mask itself is an intriguing concept, but it's one that's not touched upon as much as it should have been. It features heavily in the first 6 or so episodes, only to peter away and then make an appearance at the very late stages, leaving me wondering why it's called Hero Mask at all. Because apart from one act of bravery from Theo, we don't see these masks being used for good, but I imagine the name will make more sense in part 2, as the first 15 episodes are only half of the story. So as you can imagine, like Sword Guy and Forest of Piano before it, Hero Mask doesn't conclude. It just leaves you hanging, teetering on the edge of putting part 2 on your to-watch list, because there is something positive to be gleaned from its story, but the problem lies in its characters and execution. From its first frame to its last, you can tell that director Hiroyasu Aoki wanted to make a live-action film, and more specifically, a live-action western film. Some scenes feel that they were taken straight out of Taken, and the introduction of branching story arcs with an ever-expanding cast reminded me of something you'd find in NCIS or Law & Order, or whatever else my mum's been glued to on the Crime Network. But there is a reason the fast cutting of Hollywood action films don't translate to anime. And while Hero Mask has an impressive number of cuts in its fight scenes, how they were laid out at the storyboard stage is its biggest issue. If we run the fight between Harry and James, which takes place in the middle of heavy traffic, it becomes hard to follow, especially around the moment where we quick cut between their feet. The key animators in charge of this scene are clearly quite talented, and I can see how the director was trying to create a sense of chaos and anxiety, but had it been slowed down a fraction, with some of those cuts removed, the scene would have played out better. Comparatively, Netflix's Be the Beginning, another anime cop drama, takes action in a more fluid direction. Its varying use of cameras turn 2D space into 3D, and it's utterly satisfying to watch how the team use the environment. Whereas Hero Mask throws big action sequences at you quite consistently during its run, but none of them feel impactful enough to remember. Probably because the cast doing the fighting are nothing if not forgettable. I mentioned earlier that it has an expanding cast, and with so many characters being introduced, we never get to fully develop or fully invest in any of them. James Blood, is a shoot first ask questions later archetype, who lacks any of the charm and charisma from his namesake. He is nothing more than a vehicle to the next action sequence, devoid of any personality, which makes his victories feel hollow. His lack of personality then trickles down through the rest of the cast, so the progression through its narrative becomes boring. Had a little more attention been paid to them, then I think you'd be listening to a different review, because Hero Mask has consistent, decent animation and an interesting concept, but the result is a dull slog that was boring more often than it was not. Maybe season 2 will give the cast a much needed boost, but as it stands, Hero Mask is nothing more than just fine. And in our current anime climate, where instant classics are born every single season, is it fine to be okay with just fine? I'll leave you with that thought as I finish my coffee. But to be honest, I'm far more interested in getting a sequel in than I am of this anime.